And the great French writer Victor Hugo said, "How sad to think that nature speaks and mankind doesn't listen." But thankfully now we're going to hear about some communities that have indeed been listening, not just with their ears, but with their eyes, their hearts and their minds, about what their local nature has been telling them. And they took action to protect and improve it. Now, the first stop on our whirlwind tour of the world today is over to South Africa, where hopefully waiting for us there is Dimitri Syrris, the founder of Baotree. I hope I've said that correctly. Dimitri is there to greet us. Now, Dimitri is a conservation community technologist, but a wildlife ranger at heart, something I can relate to as a former ranger myself. And he spent several years in London working in the marketing technology area, but as a result of an expedition across Africa, working with NGOs and marginalised communities on the borders of wildlife protected areas, he was inspired to merge his love for technology into the world of conservation and community relationships. So he created Baotree, a software solution that enables environmental action at local level, supports diplomacy and communication across all grassroots stakeholders. Dimitri, please tell us more about this exciting innovation.
Thank you very much, Carol, and it's an absolute privilege and honor to be here on World Earth Day. I'm just going to share my screen to do a very short 7-minute presentation with respect to everyone's time. And Carol, you did a wonderful introduction, and as Baotree stands named after the baobab tree, which is in this picture here, we've really developed our technology to support and involve all of the local stakeholders for global change. Now, how do we go about doing that? Well, first it focuses on relationships. And that starts with the relationships that we have with each other as humans. And more importantly, in some instances, especially on this topic of protecting our natural biodiversity, these relationships exist in the natural world too. So Baotree comes in to understand this very complex and interconnected relationship between these two worlds of humans and nature. Now, the world firmly sits in the hands of our humanity and the decisions and choices that we make today. And I'm not going to talk too much on this because we see these different press releases coming out at a very high frequency in news across the world. But I really want to take a step back from the challenges and the realities and look at what's coming up. Now, the trends that are really important, and I'm going to bring relevance to the topic of today, is firstly looking at, and as a technologist, looking at connection. Where in 1995, 1% of the world's population was connected, where today it's nearly 64%. When we blend that with looking at, again, with a focus to Africa, smartphone penetration and adoption is massively and exponentially scaling. And the last trend to bring in is really around population growth, which, as you can see, in the next 30 years, Africa's population is going to increase and double, which is quite frightening, but at the same time, it really provides an opportunity to see how we can utilize technology to blend the balance between these two worlds of nature and humans. Now, Baotree involves a couple of stakeholders. They are organizations, the grassroots communities, and donors and investors who support these organizations and communities. So we act as this relationship management tool to bridge transparency, accountability, and ownership between these two worlds. So how do we do that? Well, first up, we have Baotree. It's a project management tool that allows organizations at a local level around national and protected areas to run projects that include the communities. And that's a big reason why we've included a piece of our feature set called Bao Voices. Bao Voices is a two-way communication portal to allow organizations to register community individuals that surround the protected areas in order to have a survey response to actually listen to what the development needs are and understand and measure attitudes and behaviors towards our natural ecosystems. So between project management and the survey ecosystem, we can bridge a lot of transparency, but most importantly, we have BioConnect, which is our non-profit foundation registered in the Netherlands, which connects directly to Baotree's projects on the ground, where donors can have full real-time view in terms of that exchange between organizations and communities at the grassroots level. So to make that a bit more tangible, I thought it'd be quite cool to talk about these projects where I am South African, but currently in Nairobi, Kenya. And three of our partners that we ran our technology tests with last year, three conservancies, Loisaba, Olpejita, and Borana Conservancy. Now, each of these groups worked with their communities to identify development need for their partnered community. For Loisaba, it was providing predator-proof solutions to mitigate hyenas and lions taking out livestock at night. For Olpejita, it was providing the youth with a chicken incubator to mitigate the impact that COVID created last year, as well as a continued ripple effect into this year. And then for Borana Conservancy, it was providing clean access to water via a natural spring pulled through in a gravity pipe. So these were the development needs of the communities. But now we go through a process of dignifying the communities to be a part of their projects. So we engaged with these communities in tech that they are familiar with. So some might know USSD, or another way to say it is SMS, where these individuals get registered by their name and mobile number. We then encourage communities to report tasks that cover environmental, economic, and social activities of notifying their partner organization when they've had a human-wildlife conflict of an elephant crop raid, or they might have planted new saplings or removal of invasive species. So it's really enabling action from beyond the protected area to manage these ecosystems. And a big important part is ensuring that we have in-field partners that are verifying this through our smartphone verification tool, where we encourage our partners to go in and capture photographic evidence and document the reports that have been submitted by the community. So really allowing for a democratic exchange between these two worlds, where incentive is what really drives strong environmental action, as well as these social and economic-based activities which can support. With the whole notion is, if we support people, people will support our environment. Now, to round it off, the real notion around this is, can democracy save the environment? And as a technologist, as a possibilist, as an enthusiast and passionate lover of everything natural, I strongly believe the answer is yes. And we can do that through co-creation, through co-collaboration, and through partnering with other like-minded individuals, organizations, and stakeholders on the ground. And Baotree is very much at the beginning of our journey as we look being a software tool to scale, not just across Africa, but South America, Europe, and Asia. And this is all going to, fingers crossed, start developing and building over the next 3 to 5 years. So really, thank you so much. Wonderful to be here celebrating World Earth Day. And thank you for the World Forum for creating this opportunity and community. So glad I managed to do it under 7 minutes, and look very forward to hearing the other panelists. So thank you so much.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Dimitri. And thank you for that beautiful analogy that the roots of the Baotree is nourishing the community through the technology. I think that's a really lovely image. And thank you too for reminding us that we often talk about engaging with communities and talking with communities, but in fact listening is a really first and most important key skill. So if you may, if you don't mind, I'd like to just kind of ask you a question just to follow up your intervention there. And I'm just wondering in what way the use of this technology has actually opened up the door to new participants to be involved in interacting with their biodiversity. Maybe perhaps young people might be a particular audience.
Certainly, Carol, and it's extremely prevalent when we, again, look at Africa and the technological leapfrog moments that are happening through these different avenues of mobile money and social platforms. And the youth of Africa is very tech savvy. So we need to engage and interact by the means and mediums that they're most familiar with, and ensuring that technology engages them and keeps them not necessarily within the social dilemma and having these big tech organizations using data for the wrong reasons, but it's how can we drive action through technology and have an incentive-based model to drive that interaction. And the incentive can be as simple as airtime or data. And then as a collective community, it can be solar energy, predator-proof solutions. So we've really tried to understand the complexity of the landscape here. And as you can imagine, I mean, in Kenya, in Kenya, in Botswana, South Africa, Zimbabwe, the cultures are all so diverse and different, speaking to the global population too. And we really wish to create a solution that, you know, is a tool. We want to be the technologists that provide the tools to the experts on the ground, where we are not saying we are ecologists or biologists or specialists within that, but we are technologists. And how can we just be the supporters, the people that serve, the individuals that serve the impact that we wish to create? So I hope that answers your question. I didn't go too in the clouds there.
No, thank you. I think also just to be reminded that the technology, in fact, helps create, you know, for democracy to thrive, we need a safe, transparent, honest place for that exchange to take place. And I was just reflecting that your technology is, you know, creating that because it's so accessible to anybody who wants to use it.
Thank you, Carol.
Thanks.